This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Hey everyone, welcome to Best Bets for Pets. I'm your show host, Michelle Fern. And today we're going to have a special guest, and it's all about Sizzling summer tips. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. Hey everyone, Michelle Fern here, your host on Best Bets for Pets and Catitude. Ben and Jerry's has frozen treats for dogs. I know Nikki is going to love this. He loves a frozen treat. They have two different flavors. One is Punch's Mix, which is peanut butter and pretzel, and the other one is Rosie's Batch, which is pumpkin and mini cookies. You know, I kind of like both of those flavors too, but my absolute favorite is fish food. Anything Ben & Jerry's is always fabulous because the quality is so good and their mixes are so delicious. Be sure to check out more about these frozen dog desserts as well as pictures of all the caniners at the Ben & Jerry's Vermont office at benjerry.com. That's BENJERRY.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm so excited for today because, hey, we're talking about summer and I have a special guest, my good buddy, Cheryl Kaye. You might have heard her podcast. I hope you did. It's Unleashed. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thanks for having me.
You know what, Cheryl? It's summertime. I mean, we're both happen to be based in South Florida where it's summertime, like, 10 months out of the year? And it's
13 months.
Yeah, sometimes 13, it feels like it. But for most of, at least the Northern Hemisphere, am I saying that right? You know, most of the country, it's summertime. For all of the U.S., it's summertime. And with summertime, there comes some really good guidelines that all pet parents, pet lovers have to keep in mind because there's so many things that pet parents don't think, you know, so many things that are obvious, but there's so many things that they're like, really? I didn't know that. And every year you read about some horrific, you know, horrible little pooch that was suffocated in a car or passed out because of the heat or something like that. So the goal, what we want to do is just talk about some of these great tips and hopefully save some fur babes' lives. Right, Cheryl?
Right. So let's just get it out in the open. We're talking about people honestly that really need some kind of guidance because maybe it's their first pet and they're going on trips with the family. I mean, a lot of things are opening now. A lot of people take their animals to parks. So these are for newbie pet owners who might not know.
Right. And speaking of people that leave their animals in a car when it's hot. That's a whole other show, and that's just a whole other thing. So we're not going there. But here's something. A lot of pet parents, especially new pet parents, don't realize even with car trips that in some climates, car trips are forget about it. No. When I lived in Los Angeles, I would take my dog for little car trips sometimes to just, you know, she liked it. But there, the weather is not the same as it is in South Florida. It's much cooler. It's much less humid. If you live in a warm place, and if especially in the summer where it's warm almost everywhere, of course, in the U.S. and in most of North America, try to avoid car trips unless you're going to the vet, you're going to board your pet, you're going to drop your pet off at, a pet play date or something, or if you're traveling with your pet and it can't be helped. Don't take your dog for little car trips, even if the window's down. It's too hot for them.
No, we're talking car trips that are a trip where you have to put the
air conditioner car trips on. That are just like, oh, I'm going to the store. Let me take my dog with me.
No need.
And, if you're going to the pet store, that's different. But if you're just, I'm going to run a little errand and I'll take the dog in with me, which first of all, most dogs are not allowed in stores in the U.S. unless they are for special services. Anything special, special needs, special services for working dogs.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Okay.
Otherwise, I wouldn't do that. they let every animal in. I've seen people in like these box stores. I think that's dangerous. It's dangerous to bring kids into these stores. Things could fall and they get overwhelmed with people. I don't think that's the greatest thing for a pet.
Well, I see sometimes that, the ladies are shopping and I've seen it more with ladies. I'm not trying to be biased here. And they'll think, I'll take my little pet out. And some people have the little carriages for their pets. That's fine. But when it's 90 and you're hot, your pet is really, really hot. Maybe think about leaving the pet at home. 90 degrees humidity is not good.
Right.
So I think we've beaten this subject up right here. Try not to take your pet out unless you really have to, especially, well, of course, we're talking summertime. So in the summertime.
Yeah. I'm thinking trips, family trips. That's what I'm thinking. I'm not.
That's different.
That I wouldn't, it's too stressful unless, it's just too stressful for an animal and it's not really necessary.
Right. And also, I would say limit the time your pooch is outside. Try to avoid the high sun time, which is like they say between 11 and 3 are the high sun times when the sun's beaming pretty much overhead. And that's the time when, you have to apply sunscreen every 10 minutes or so. Try to avoid having your pet pooch outside at those times. And also, Cheryl, I want to hear, you had a really good tip about the pavement.
Yeah, if you put your hand on the pavement, because, it's hot now, and it's going to be getting hotter. And if you can't keep your hand there for 10 seconds, your pet shouldn't be on it. But I have to tell you, I watched where I lived yesterday, where I live. A guy was walking his dog. It's a little poodle, but the dog is smarter than him. So he walks the dog off the grass on the pavement. The dog goes on the grass, does not move. And he finally gets it in his head that on the grass, number one, is comforting and it's shady. The dog did not want to go on the pavement. The dog was smarter than him. And the dog won.
Right. If you're taking your dog out, walk on your grass. Take them. If you don't have a lawn, maybe there's some grass right in front of your apartment building or something. Do that and just get the business done. You package it up, dump it, you're done. Avoid pavement. There's another thing. If you don't want to put your hand on the ground, also just put your bare foot on the ground too.
Same
if it's hot for you, too hot for your dog. Even though the pads of our feet versus their paws are a little different, the feeling of the heat is pretty close. So that's a great rule of thumb.
Well, I'm not for, dressing animals up, but they do have some. To me, I would use, even like a baby, an infant's sock. You could put this goop stuff that a lot of places sell to put on their paws. It's good for the sand, it's good for dirt, and it's good for pavement. And then they say even when you bring the dog in, you could moisturize their paws. Because they're sensitive there.
They are. And keep in mind, whatever you're using on your dog's feet, make sure they're breathable because, they don't breathe and sweat like we do. It's a lot of on their pads and on their nose and from their panting. So it's a different type of way how they feel temperature. Also, I'm glad you brought up paw pads because that's I have a peeve about paw pads. You make sure, especially in summer when your dog is in, sand and dirt and who knows what, you check your dog's paw pads. In some places, those little sticky burrs that come up, they can get stuck in your dog's paw pad and cause an amazingly horrible infection. So it's a good habit every day to just check your dog's paw pads.
Well, just think of yourself walking outside barefoot. What would you do when you came in? You check.
Right.
You just got to be smart about it. It's our responsibility to make sure that they go places where it's safe. And then if not, we bring them in and we check. That's, if you can't do that, that's something so little, then I don't know what else to say. But I'm thinking in my head, not day trips, although, with the school out and the kids are out, people are doing overnights or a couple of days, in a car and stuff like that. I think when you have a pet, just like, I have in my house and I have in my car, a first aid kit. And I think people should really think that when you
That's
go on
a smart
trip.
idea. But just before you mention first aid kit, I wanted to just mention something else. Also, since, summer, of course, more fleas are prevalent, but also check for ticks. They're not only in woodsy areas. I'm in the tropics, and one year there was just a breakout of ticks. And
they could be in your backyard.
They could be in your backyard. And the best thing to do to just check for ticks, run your hands over your dog's body, especially, I believe it's like the underarm part. I know it's not underarm, but under their, where the paws meet the body, that area, by the face, by the nose. Feel for any kind of bumps and make sure you look, at the bump with a very good light. Most telephones have a really good flashlight on them. Our phones do, our smartphones do everything these days. So with a good flashlight. And I found a tip while I was doing some research. Ticks really hate Listerine and
oil.
Rubbing alcohol.
Yeah.
So you can do that to kind of lure the tick out. And I know that part of it, this is in your first aid kit, but I just wanted to mention for people to keep on the lookout for.
Well, they should also use whatever their vet recommends as far as, tick guard or flea guard, because also from mosquitoes, you could get heartworm. And, if you get heartworm, that's a whole different ball game.
Exactly. So we're going to take a short break for our next commercial, and we'll be right back. And we're going to talk about what to do for your dog's first aid kit. We'll be right back.
Sit. Stay. We'll be right back, right after we kibble a little with our sponsors.
Hello, pet lovers. This is Michelle Fern. And we do so much for our pets and for everyone during the day. We're busy with work and this and that. We need a little me time, right? Well, this is what I've been doing to give myself a little refresher during the day. I love a good mystery, and I love hidden object murder mystery games because it just sharpens my mind when I'm in that, maybe mid-afternoon slump. In this game called June's Journey, you awaken your inner sleuth and you step right into this thrilling adventure that's set in the Roaring 20s. You play as June Parker. She's an amateur detective solving the mysterious murder of her sister. This game is totally free to download, and it really puts your power of observation, your memory skills, and logic skills to the test. And it leaves you totally refreshed to take on the rest of your day. So join the 30 million fans across the globe and awaken your inner detective with June's Journey. It's very fun, so be sure to check out June's Journey. You can download June's Journey free today on the Apple App Store or on Google Play.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Best Bets for Pets, and I'm here with Cheryl Kaye, and we're going to talk about what to put in your dog's first aid kit. Having a first aid kit for your pooch is a necessity for travel or just if you're going to the dog park. Having that first aid kit with these items that we're going to mention can make the difference between a possible just a heartache for your dog to making something more palatable that you could just get through until you can get to the vet.
Right.
Wouldn't you say?
Yes. I mean, you have to be prepared.
Have to be prepared, yeah. What's your number one thing?
Number one, well, it doesn't have to be numbered. I just came up with a list. Flashlights, gauze, definitely an extra collar and leash, because sometimes if you're on a trail and something should happen, your dog could get out of his leash and his collar. Non-stick bandages, cotton balls, and Q-tips. And the old staple that you could use for everything, peroxide.
Yep. And then I have some things to add that are maybe a little pooch specific in my days at going to the dog park and dealing with all kinds of craziness from when I was in Los Angeles. I mean, there's crazy stuff that comes up. I would say have in your first aid kit some treats. And this really happened. I was in Los Angeles. It's a dog park up in the mountains, and it was getting late and they were about to close. And there's just myself. There was this other guy. Our dogs were hanging out. His dog, of course, listened perfectly, came right to him. And my dog's on some adventure still.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how do I get her back? I had like mints in my pocket. They weren't even with sugar in them. They were sugar-free mints. I thought, this is not going to do it. I had no treats. I had nothing.
That's a good idea to have treats.
Yes. I was telling the guy, I said, please help me. I don't know what to do. There's coyotes in the mountains, and this. Finally, I don't even remember. I think I was praying to the dog, please help me. And finally she just came up. But then I thought, never again. I'm always going to have treats in my car or, in my first aid kit, because you never know when you'll have to lure your dog from someplace. And my dog listened pretty good, but not 100% all the time. So treats are a good thing.
Yeah, that is a good thing if they go for treats or a toy, but that is good.
Treats or a toy, something to get their attention if you have to leave and get them away. And most dogs are pretty good at listening and paying attention. But when they're in the park and it's their time, they're off leash and they're running around, not always. And then I have one more, and this was a true life situation. There are a lot of styptic powders. I'm familiar with the brand, and this is a brand name called Clotted. And what this is, it's a powder, and when you apply it to the injury, the blood stops. And mostly it's used on nails, but it could be used on a shallow wound, and it will stop the blood. It's temporary. It's not meant to be a permanent fix. And what actually happened to me one time is Mr. Nicky, who's a little Havanese, we were moving that day and he's in the car. All of a sudden, his nail starts bleeding like crazy. And I'm like, what the heck? What's with this? Why is his nail bleeding? And his nail wasn't even really long, but he's Havanese, he's a little dog, like 14 pounds. His nail must have split and it was bleeding. And my partner grabs Band-Aids, like people Band-Aids, and he must have gone through 7 trying to wrap them around. I'm like, this is not going to work. We found a pet store, and I think we had to make 2 stops. We found a pet store, found, the styptic powder, and in this case, I think it was Clotted, solved the problem right away. So all I'm saying is, I know that some people have said, well, you can use pepper if you cut a nail or something.
Honey also.
How messy is honey? This is just powder. You press it on or you put some in your hand, put their nail in there. It just stops the bleeding. And it's
that's
fabulous.
A good idea.
It is so worth it to have it with you because you never know. And for me, it was crazy because it was moving day. And all of a sudden I have this little bleeding puppy. And it turned out it was nothing major.
Use it
it's
for
just
people
nails.
too, right?
I don't know. Probably.
Yeah, that sounds like a very good thing to have.
But it's a good thing to have. We have it in the house. We have it in our first aid kit. It's just phenomenal to have. So those are 2 of my favorites. Also tweezers.
Definitely. And scissors.
And scissors.
And a magnifying glass.
And also saline eye solution, because sometimes they can get into something and it's just a matter of just using the saline to like wash it out. You should still check with your vet, but
I don't know. Could you use that on an animal as opposed to just water?
Saline eye solution? Yeah, I think so. I looked at many, many sources, but check with your vet. Just check with your vet. Sometimes your dogs just get into something and it'll irritate their eyes just like people. And which brings me to another thing, since we're talking about eyes. You know how your dog likes to stick his head out the window or her head out the window when you're driving?
Very dangerous.
Not a good idea.
Very bad.
My dog once jumped out, so that can happen. And 2, by your dog sticking their head out the window, the wind is blowing, right? There's a lot of debris out there. I don't think too many people smoke these days, but you have ashes that could fly. There's too much stuff that could fly into your dog's eyes and irritate them and their ears too. It's just not good.
Yeah, no, it's very dangerous. First of all, I don't even think people do that anymore. Although
I
do see videos of it, little here and a little there, but you got to really be careful. I mean, I've heard nightmare stories. Also, milk of magnesia for poisons and a digital thermometer.
That's good. And I would recommend there's a lot of telemedicine these days that are really, really good. I know one of our show hosts, Dr. Jeff, is on one. And there's a lot of telemedicine. And, you have it on your phone. They can see what you're doing. They can see your dog if there's something of urgency. And it's just like a lifesaver rather than panic. And, these things never happen when it's, I could just run to the vet. They happen late at night, early in the morning, weekend, what have you. Having a telemedicine app on your phone is just a great idea. It's so accessible. What do you think about those, Cheryl?
Yeah, no, that I think is a very good idea. But also, if you were going to go on a trip, I mean, we've all taken some pets in the car, or people who have taken, cats on a plane when you used to be able to do these things. You always consult your vet first. If I was going on a long trip with a dog, I would certainly consult my vet about what he thought I should bring. If they see even Benadryl for allergies, your dog could get stung by a bee and he could blow up, or he could have some kind of reaction that could really be traumatic when you're in a park or on a trail. I mean, a lot of people take, their animals on trails in the woods. You could be 2-3 hours in. You have to have water. You have to have a bowl. And you really have to be smart about where you go and the time limit that it takes, because you should also have a carrier in your car for a smaller pet, a smaller dog. We're not really talking cats, because cats really wouldn't. They're unusual ones that would like to go on a hike, but just in case something happens, because I also read about those jackets to calm them, that in case something should happen, I know you could always use a towel to put it around snug, but they even have these new muzzles now that are so soft that if something was happening, I'm not talking about their face, but how animals get agitated, say they cut their leg, or they had a problem with another animal and they had a fight and they got wounded. They growl, whatever. You can make them feel calmer by putting this on them and putting that jacket on them until you got to a vet, till you could access it. And you know what I'm thinking now? I mean, even though we mentioned a scissor, maybe a razor, that if you thought there was a wound, you could shave in that area to see. That might be something. What do you think?
I'm not going near my dog with a razor. I'll rather
Well,
cut
I
the
don't
hair.
mean a razor, a shaver.
A shaver.
Not a razor, whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
If you have to. One thing too, since we were talking about sun and heat and summer and everything, keep in mind that light-haired dogs and short-haired dogs can actually get sunburn. We're becoming better and better pet parents all the time. So now, yes, there is doggy sunburn, a sunburn lotion and spray. And
a
you want
spray
to
would be good.
Right.
Spray
Well, you
would be
want to
good.
make sure it's for dogs, though, because the one that's for people is
clogs your
not
pores.
always safe enough for dogs.
No, it would clog your pores.
And then just to end, in ending, I want to just mention what to do when your dog gets overheated, because this is something just to know about. Wouldn't you say, Cheryl?
Yes, that's very important. The
So-
signs. The signs aren't like for people.
It's different. And also for those of us that have long-haired dogs that have a shorter coat that keep them cool. Yes, I know about that. I know that short-haired dogs stay cooler and dogs that have double coats, but guess what? They can all get heat exhaustion, and they can all, if they get heat stroke, it can be
die.
fatal.
They could die.
So here's what you want to do. Your dog's temperature should never be over 104. The average is about 101 to 102.5. So there, if you have a doggy thermometer in your first aid kit, that's something. But the most important and most basic is look for signs of heat exhaustion. If your dog's panting excessively, if your dog's drooling, if your dog feels a little like, kind of spaced out or whatever.
Well, their eyes too.
Yeah,
Because dogs do pant to cool off. So that
they
could be
pant to
normal.
cool off, but if they're panting excessive, like, your pooch, if they're panting like crazy, then you need to be concerned.
Okay.
Now, this is all heat exhaustion. It's not heat stroke, but let's say your dog, whether it's heat exhaustion, heat stroke, if you catch the heat stroke in the beginning stages, what you can do is take your dog, your dog to a cooled area, a shaded area, pour some cool water over your dog, continue pouring cold water over your dog, try to get your dog to drink some water. That could be challenging if your dog's a little nauseated. So try to do that. And
Cool water cools the brain on the head.
Yeah, and it cools them down. And heat stroke, that can be fatal in as little as maybe 10, 20 minutes. So you want to make sure to catch it early. That's why talking about the heat and your fur baby and the heat and everything, it's so crucial to keep your dog out of the heat, because heat stroke happens fast. Every year we hear these horror stories, I was only gone 10 minutes. I left my dog in the car. It was just a few minutes, and then 10 minutes comes 20 minutes and you think, oh, they'll be fine. No, your dog can die in as little as 10 minutes. Don't do it. So these are just some tips. What other tips do you think, Cheryl, if your dog has, either signs of heat exhaustion, heat stroke, that where you think you can bring your dog back? What else would you say would be a good thing to do?
If I had a cold pool, I'd throw him right in it. Shock him. I don't know.
Well, they say shocking is not so good. If it's really cold, it should be cool water.
Well, what pool is very cold?
Right, especially 90-degree
weather. But, talking about pools, well, really anywhere because it's in the sun. But talking about pools, if a lot of dogs love to swim. I mean, they have this new thing now. They dive, dogs are jumping off of docks and they love it. But, if you take a dog into a pool, you have to show them how to get out of the pool, because they're not going to have the strength from the pool to just jump out. So they have to know where the steps are. They don't have like what we could do with our arms. But I just think you have to carry water with you. You have to be smart, and, you have to be responsible. I mean, it's not just you if you're going on a hike. And you have to think, when people go on long walks, you're talking 10 miles. 10 miles might be too long for a dog.
Yes, especially in the summer. And then just quick comment when you said if your dog's in the pool, I see a lot of dogs in the ocean too. Make sure you give your dog a bath. Chlorine is not good for their skin. It's not good for people's skin, our skin either. Salt water can be really drying for people. It's drying for the dog. So keep that in mind. Don't think, oh, my dog took a bath. He went into the water,
kiddie
the ocean,
pools,
whatever.
Kiddie pools.
Kiddie pools are okay. I mean, it's just water. It's water. It's not chlorine in the water. But pool pools, that's chlorine.
Yeah, it's not good for you.
So what would you say your number one tip in everything we talked about would be? If you had to say just one, Cheryl.
I would just say, be careful in the heat. Either walk your dog just before the sun comes up and in the shade, or late in the evening if your dog can handle it. You have to be careful because the cement really is really brutal. And now in the summer, it really is. I mean, walk out there. You don't even have to put your paw. You don't have to put your hands or your feet there. Just feel what it does to you. I mean, I get in my car. If you don't have one of those things for the windshield.
Oh, the windshield, the visor.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, if you don't have one of those things, you could just burn your hands literally on your steering wheel.
Yeah. So, I mean, just because you want your friend with you all the time doesn't mean it's good for your friend. Going into the woods, walking an animal in the woods isn't such a bad idea because there is shade there. But normally, we don't do that. Normally, on an everyday basis, we're taking them out to do their business outside, and you just have to be aware. We have grass. It's a shame. You certainly don't want to do it where you're going to upset a neighbor or where people walk, but you have to really be smart. I know with a lot of where I live, some people have these little, trophy animals. They're little tiny things. They don't even walk them. They go on wee-wee pads in the house. They fit in pocketbooks.
Yeah, the mini teacups.
But
I'd say we've gone over so many tips. I'd have to say my number one thing, keep your dog inside where it's cool when it's the super hot time in the summer, when it's the 90-degree days, the humid days. Just keep them inside. Take them out to just do their business. Keep them inside.
How many times do you think a dog goes out a day? 3, 4?
3 times, maybe 4 times. But if your dog's on the grass, if it has to be during, the high sun times, maybe 10 to 3, 11 and 3, just go out quickly, go on grass, bring them in. That's it.
Could you imagine people in the cities where there's no grass?
There's usually, right in front of their place, or they sell little grass things, but that's a whole other show too. So I guess,
Yeah, let me come down with my grass.
Right. Let me come down with my grass. Or they put their grass on their balcony.
If they have a balcony.
True.
Because even around the trees in some cities, they've wired it up that you can't even do it. Oh, it's just too many things to think about.
Well, we're in the tropics, not the city. So one thing we have to be careful about is our dogs melting in this heat. But anyways, Cheryl, it's been so much fun having you on Best Bets for Pets. You guys take a listen to Unleashed by Cheryl Kaye. It is so informative, so funny. Cheryl does it like nobody else. So thank you so much, Cheryl, for coming on Best Bets for Pets.
Thanks for having me anytime.
And I just want to give a quick thank you to everyone listening. Thank you so much for listening to Best Bets for Pets. We've been on air over 10 years now, almost 11. It's incredible. Thanks to my pet crew, Molly, Charlotte, Dennis, Nikki, and Sammy and Jethro. Why I have to always think about them, I don't know, because their names should just come off my mouth very quickly. And thanks, of course, to my producer, Mark Winter, for making me and my guests sound wonderful. And I keep listening. You never know what's coming up.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.